Hello, everyone. Well, Chris was here and he had a little internet problem, so we'll be back in a minute, I'm sure. And Lala, you'll be here momentarily. She's dealing with our dog who is being a little rambunctious this evening. So we have Chris with us tonight, the grandson of Ed and Lorraine Warren, which is, of course, just such a great treat. And I hope he gets his internet situation fixed. Well, I've been talking to him for 5 minutes, and we'll just see how it goes. Let me see if I can get some comments here while everybody's getting their act together. And yeah, let me say hello to Hello, Marty. Happy Tuesday. Hello, Mercedes. Always good to see you. Delta, that's welcome back. And our favorite, is she retired police?
Yes.
Retired police.
But she still does stuff.
Oh, does stuff on the side.
With her dog, police dog.
And here I am talking. So let's bring Chris on the stage. And let's see. Why? There we go. There we go. All right.
No, it might take a minute. Hello, how are you?
Great. I apologize. I'm having a little bit of an internet problem here in Paraguay, but I'm booting up my other computer, see if that'll work better.
Okay,
so if we have a problem, I will try to switch there. And if I seem a little distracted here at the beginning, that's why I'm trying to get that one to work.
Are you in Asuncion?
Yes, I am.
That's great. Yes, I've been there. So I did a lot of traveling for the government.
Of course, I know.
All over Latin America. So it was a busy little over a decade for me. So Chris, tell us. Everybody, of course, knows who Ed and Lorraine are, but tell us who you are and your relationship with them and the current things you're doing for the Warren family history and trust, etc. Legacy. The legacy of the Warrens.
All right. Well, my name is Chris McKinnell. I'm the grandson of Ed and Lorraine. I started working with them. Well, I started traveling with them when I was 14, and I started working with them when I was 16. That's when I went on my very first investigation. I started the Warren Legacy Foundation for Paranormal Research with my grandmother after the first movie came out. I realized that we really needed to extend our reach and that we were getting requests for help all over the world. You know, people don't know New England in places like, I don't know, Czechoslovakia. But they've heard, of course, of the Warren name. And I wanted to keep that alive as well. So I asked my grandmother what she thought of this idea, and she loved it. And so we worked on it together, and that's how the foundation was formed.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, they led such an interesting life. It's good to, in some way, memorialize and pay homage to the things they accomplished and did. And of course, almost no one has interest in anything even remotely akin to the paranormal that doesn't know their name.
That would be true. Yeah. I mean, they were not the first. That people often say that to me, that, you know, these were the pioneers, but they weren't. I mean, people have been investigating the paranormal for many, many centuries. But they were the first ones to break into the public consciousness. Maybe Hans Holzer beat them a little bit, but, you know, honestly, for lasting impact, I would say the Warren name is the one that seems to have stuck.
Oh yeah, they were the paranormal zeitgeist for a long time. The Holzer files are, of course, magnificent, especially now that you can listen to them on YouTube. It's even better. And so they're on demand. So you went on investigations with them. What was the most interesting, the scariest? Tell us some standouts.
You've got a ton.
This is the question I get asked in every single interview. The scariest would have had to have been my first, because after that first night, I never was afraid of the paranormal again. You have to understand, when I was 3 years old, I was locked in my grandparents' museum. It wasn't my mother, as shown in Annabelle 3. That was me. My mom was my mom by that point. She wasn't some little teenage psychic. As a matter of fact, my mom's not psychic at all. I don't know why she's not saying she is. But that was me, and I was afraid of the dark for the rest of my childhood. And then when I was 16, my grandfather got a hold of me and said, "Chris, it's time for you to go on your first case." Now, I had never even considered going on a case. That was not on my list of things to do. But we went up to Lee, Massachusetts, and this was a house with a husband and wife. They just inherited it from their uncle who had died, his uncle. It was a very tiny tract house in a mill town, and they had 2 daughters. Almost the moment they moved in, things started to happen. There was a little boy, or a spirit that looked like a little boy, that had shown up. And it had come to them when they were in their bedroom, and it had said, "Where do all the lonely people go?" Now, the woman, a recent convert to Christianity, she had been Jewish, and to marry her husband, she had converted to Catholicism, but she was very devout. And she immediately contacted her priest, who came in, did a blessing, and that spirit never appeared again. Unfortunately, the first night that her husband was working, he was working on a rotating shift at the mill, and the first night that he was working overnight, this hulking black shape came into the bedroom, picked up her rosary beads that were hanging on the bedpost, and twirled them as if to say, "You think these are going to stop me?"
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
No.
So she ran past this thing. As she was running to the first daughter's room directly across the hall, the pull-down stairs from the attic came smashing down on her head. She had been trying to open the door, wouldn't open, and there were no locks on the doors, not the kids' doors. Once she had come to again, she was able to get them out. There was massive poltergeist phenomena, including the refrigerator flying across the room, tables, chairs. By the time we arrived, almost everything had been removed. There was as I recall, the stove was still there, and I know the stove was there. The sofa and the recliner in the base in the living room, and that's it. Those were the 2 rooms downstairs. And upstairs, the beds were still there, but the dressers, everything else were gone. Wow. And when we got there, we were there with another investigator who had come. He had always helped my grandparents. His name was Paul Bartz. The husband and wife were standing outside. They had not been living in the house, and they wouldn't go in without us. And as soon as we walked in, we understood why. I have done this now for 44 years. I have never seen anything like what I experienced that night. And I've seen a lot in my time. But the whole house was shaking from the pounding in the walls. And it was coming in repetitions of 3. My grandfather said, "This is a sure sign that we're dealing with something demonic. It's an insult to the Trinity." I'll reserve judgment on that. But as we walked around the downstairs, it continued. As we went up the stairs, the walls were literally shaking. And I could hear clawing and growling coming out of the walls as well. And remember, I'm afraid of the dark at this point.
Yeah.
We get to the top of the stairs, and the pull-down stairs to the attic that had smashed her head were pulled down. And I took a look to my left where the bathroom was, and there was this big funeral cross. You know, the kind that opens up and they have things inside of. And it's hanging on the wall in the bathroom upside down, straight out of Hollywood. So my grandfather says, Chris, I want you to sit in the dark in the master bedroom where the woman was attacked, and we're going to go downstairs and we're going to smudge the whole house. You let us know if anything happens. You what? You're going to what? I was like, so
Trial by fire.
oh, exactly. It was a baptism by fire, literally. So I went in, I sat down on the bed in the dark, listening to all this go on around me. As they're downstairs lighting Holy Church incense in a kitchen pot, they were able to smudge downstairs, but every time they tried to bring it up the stairs, it would go out. Now, you guys have got experience. Once this stuff is lit, really lit, it doesn't go out. And they could not get it to light to go up the stairs. So, and the whole time I'm like, Gramps, I hear this. Okay, Chris, let us know if anything else happens. What else do you want to happen? After about an hour, Paul Bartz came up and relieved me. And I went downstairs. It was about 10 o'clock at night by this point. We tried some religious provocation. At that point, everything died down, completely died down. So the woman and I ran out to the grocery store to get some sandwiches or something like that. It's important. When we came back at midnight, we were on the Brian Dow radio, all-night radio program, WTIC AM radio, 1060. Still remember this. We were on telephones. So I was in the recliner. The lady of the house and my grandfather were in the sofa, all three of us in the living room. Upstairs, Paul and the husband were on one of the girls' princess phones. And there was no 7-second delay that night. For some reason, it wouldn't work. So the people who were calling into the show were saying that they were feeling frigid cold, and it was August as this continued to go on. And we were talking about the background of this house and what had happened, how the uncle had had a twin brother, and when they were children, they were in a horse-drawn carriage playing around, and the boy got pushed out of the carriage and under the wheels and was killed instantly.
Ooh.
That was, we believe, that was the spirit that we saw in the house.
Mm-hmm.
We actually have a picture, a photo of this entity that appeared, this black entity.
Wow.
I show it often in my lectures. But at 3 o'clock in the morning, all hell broke loose. Two hulking black shapes came down the stairs and were standing on the landing looking at us. We were in pitch black darkness, and yet we could see these things even against the dark. That's how black they were.
Mm-hmm.
And the woman screamed. Now it's about 3:15. The woman screamed that her face was on fire. My grandfather turned the flashlight on her face, and we watched 3 claw marks appear on the left side of her face. There was blood down onto her chest.
Wow.
Just then, and I've got that same crucifix in my hand because I was unprepared. I had the same crucifix that had been hanging upside down in my hand, the phone in another hand, and under my breath I'm whispering, by the power of Jesus Christ, I command you to be gone. By the power of Jesus Christ, I command you to be gone, because that's what my grandfather told me to do. And this pot that had the Holy Church incense in it, a heavy steel pot, comes flying corner and straight at my head. And just at the last minute, it veered off, hit the window behind me, the shade flew up, the pot was crushed, and yet the window didn't break. I exclaimed something inappropriate over the radio in shock. And with no 7-second delay, it went on. The woman started screaming that she wanted out of the house, and I thought, this is a good idea. Mm-hmm. So I ran to the front door that we had just been through to get those sandwiches, and the door wouldn't open. Then the lights started going on and off around us, and that recliner that I had just been sitting in tumbled across the room at me. Then the door opened. She and I got out. leaving my grandfather sitting there calmly on the phone, telling everybody what was going on around us. The bravest thing I'd ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
And one of us got physically ill. I cannot for the life of me recall which of us it was. But I will be grateful to my grandfather for the rest of my life, because that night, next night, when I went to bed, it was the first night in my childhood that I went to bed without the light on. He had burned the fear out of me. If I can live through that, I can live through anything.
Well, yeah. That's
So
very
that
true.
would be the most terrifying case.
Yeah. I would have left 2 seconds in, like, all right, guys, I'm out. Sorry. So I know that you have a different opinion about demons. So what do you think they are? Why are they so angry? Are they shadow people? Or are they a different type of interdimensional thing?
I don't believe in shadow people either. Here's the thing. When I was 20, my grandfather said, "Chris, you're now a demonologist." Now, at the time, you have to recall, there were 5 priests in the country who were demonologists and my grandfather. That was it. So I'm thinking, pretty damn important. Look at me. By the time I was 26, I realized I didn't know what a demon was. And I went through so many theories over the years. So my current theory, based on all of my experience, we're dealing with a thought manifestation, an egregore, or a tulpa.
Tulpa, yeah.
Yes. Egregore is the witchcraft term. A tulpa is the Buddhist term. These are spirits created by living human energy. They are given a task to do. They go out, they do that task, and then they dissipate. But when they're created chaotically, they're not done in a directed manner, such as a poltergeist or a demon, and they take on a life of their own. I have seen these things manifest all over the world. I have lived in 105 places around the world.
Wow.
And I've studied in all of them, everywhere, from the poorest country in the world, in West Africa, to New Zealand, and now here in Latin America. And these always manifest according to our spiritual and cultural beliefs. You will never, ever see a jinn in New Zealand unless somebody happened to be serving in the Middle East.
That's true.
You can be cursed, and you can have a spirit attached to you that way. And, you know, I've got my grandmother's gifts. So I have, I talk to spirits all the time, but they're human spirits. When I'm dealing with the inhuman, it's actually easier. Maybe more dangerous, but it's easier. They follow the rules we set down. Human spirits still have free will. Most of the time, a human spirit will do what you want. Because if I ask you to do something, you're probably going to do it because you're nice people. That's what it is with most spirits. But, you know, if you were a jackass in life, you're going to be a jackass in death. And there are going to be sometimes you're going to have to reach out to someone like me.
That's very true.
So, yeah, I think that these things are created through us. And I worked on a case many, many, many years ago, the Maurice Theriault case. You can see the exorcism of Maurice on YouTube. That's one of my cases. You know, Satan's Harvest was the book. He's Frenchie in the movies, the Nun movies. Now, Nun doesn't exist. The Annabelle movies are also fantasies. Annabelle's real, but not at all what is portrayed in the movies.
Right.
But Frenchie was real. And he sadly gave me the most important lesson I ever got in the paranormal. Whenever something is manifesting negatively in a home, look for the underlying reason in the family that is now opening to them. Because it's never going to be a happy family that is dealt a very bad haunting. They are reacting to us. Now, if you're dealing with a human spirit, it can be much different.
Right.
If they don't want you in the home, they don't want you in the home. But when you're dealing with something inhuman, that manifestation is going to be shaped by you. So if you've got drug addictions or domestic violence or mental illness, it's going to manifest in a negative way because of that. And we have to deal with those problems holistically. I tell people, I try to help people understand, tell us what's really going on. Don't be like the person who goes to a doctor complaining about his hangnail when he's bleeding out of his butt. The hangnail is going to help you with that other major problem. And just because you're bipolar or schizophrenic, that doesn't mean you're not dealing with the paranormal. As a matter of fact, it makes it far more likely you are.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid of that. We're not here to judge you. We're here to help you.
So I know you help people quite a bit. What is the most common reoccurring thing that happens with people that you get hold of?
Most of the time, I'm dealing with psychics with out of control abilities, and they're overwhelmed. They don't know how to deal with it. They're looking for guidance, or they're afraid that they've been haunted for years and that this spirit has attached itself to them. And it's probably not that. It's probably the fact that they are a psychic, and a psychic's aura burns far more brightly than an ordinary person's. It's like a lighthouse in the dark for these lost souls, and they're attracted to you. Wow. And so I teach people to first understand this, and to understand that these spirits are probably not evil. They're probably not bad. They may have unfinished business, or they're lost and afraid, and they're looking to you for help. You need to set down spiritual guidelines. You have to tell them what you will and won't allow. And most of the time, that works just fine. When it doesn't, that's when you need me. But then the other thing is we teach them how to psychically ground themselves, to get rid of any excess energy. A lot of our people, especially empaths, deal with anxiety and panic disorders. And we teach them not only how to psychically ground themselves through a ritual, but to use things like either onyx, obsidian, tourmaline, combined with clear quartz to amplify the grounding ability of those other three stones. And wear it on your person always, because that will help ground your abilities and make you less open to the spirits. The other thing that I tell people is say things like, every morning you got to do this, because some spirits are transitory and they're not going to know your rules unless you state them out loud. So you say, look, I will be open to you only when I tell you I am. For instance, when I light a white candle on the kitchen table and I say, now I'm here to help you, that's the only time you're allowed to come to me. When I put that candle out, the session is finished. You may not bother me again.
Like that.
Yeah. So that's the most common the thing that we deal with. And a lot of it is also human spirits. Most of it is human spirits. And I try to caution people, judge things by the consequences. A human spirit is trying to get your attention 9 times out of 10. You hear footsteps in the hallway when you're in bed, or a knock on the door and there's nobody there. It's not the devil. If it was something that horrifying, it wouldn't be playing games with you like that.
Yeah.
So, it's probably your grandmother or the old man that used to live in the house, and they're just letting you know they're there. They steal your keys for 3 hours, and then they're there on the kitchen table where you've looked 10 times. That's just saying, hey, will you pay attention? I'm right here. And the other thing to remember, let's say, God forbid, they take my iPad and they throw it against the wall. All right, yeah, that's going to bother me. But that explosion of energy, more often than not, is because spirits don't really have fine motor control. So if they're desperate to get a hold of you at that point. I had a case here in Asuncion last month where a woman was afraid that she was being haunted. It turned out it was her father. And he was trying to get a hold of her to warn her that her ex-boyfriend had very, very violent intentions. And that's all it was.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Mercedes has a question. So sounds like your grandparents and you differ a little in kind of the fundamental belief about what these things are and how to deal with them.
Absolutely. And you have to understand, my grandparents, when they started out their first 6 years, they only believed in ghosts. They didn't believe in anything else.
Right.
But when they started seeing manifestations that they couldn't understand because they were just too powerful, they relied on their Catholic faith.
Right.
And if you're going to be my grandparents weren't researchers. They were there to help people. But if you're going to be a researcher, you can't look through the lens of one religion. My grandfather called himself a religious demonologist. These folks who are running around calling themselves demonologists today, I shake my head. How many of them are actually trying to examine this phenomena with an open mind, without examining ancient texts and saying, oh, it's Astereth or it's Beelzebub? No, it isn't.
That's true.
I had the benefit of my grandparents' experience. They had nobody. And my grandfather changed, especially over the years. I grew up thinking that rock and roll was the devil's music because that's what my grandfather believed. He unfortunately confused witchcraft and Satanism as the same exact thing for a very long time. And he didn't see the utility in studying psychology or using it in our work until after the Maurice Theriault case. And that, to me, is important. We have to accept that this is a field of research, and you need to choose somebody who's up to date on the research, not somebody who learned in 1950.
Right.
I love my grandparents. I respect my grandparents. And they changed over time. You see their old videos online. You're seeing a snapshot in time of their beliefs at that time. It has nothing to do with where they ended up.
That's true.
Go ahead.
Okay. There's so many things I want to ask you. So.
Go ahead.
So you talked about curses or family curses. How does that start? How do you help people with that situation?
Yeah, I hate the idea of magic. I find it intellectually insulting. And give me a moment. I just realized this is working, so I need to put the battery on before we run out of power. Or I need to plug it back in. Sorry.
Okay.
We're safe again. All right. So, I'm a big fan of quantum physics. I've studied it for decades. It fascinates me. I believe in directed energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we can call magic. Prayer is exactly the same thing. Curses are the same thing. It's your intention focused through ritual and your faith that create a tangible outcome. Last year here in Asuncion, because I've lived here twice now, I was dealing with a curse. I didn't want to believe it was a curse. Here in South America, everybody blames everything on witchcraft, brujeria. And I don't want to ever play into that. So for instance, I walked into my bedroom and turned on the light and got electrocuted and thrown to the ground. Ooh. I had bruises all over my body all in one night. I looked like a leopard.
Oh,
I couldn't walk. It got bad, yeah. And it continued for a couple of months, and I refused to give in to the idea that I was dealing with anything. And then one Wednesday night, my grandmother appeared to 4 different psychics on the same night. And she said, Christopher needs to deal with this. He is under magical attack.
Wow.
And I get 4 messages from 4 psychics, 2 of whom didn't know anybody in the foundation. And I was like, all right, Graham. And my grandmother comes to me all the time. So I was like, why didn't you come to me? Maybe I just wasn't open at that point. But I did 2 rituals, one to cleanse myself and one to cleanse the house. And immediately I could walk. Things stopped breaking in the house immediately. There were no lingering effects. It was an instantaneous change. So yes, I am a firm believer now that these things can have tremendous power. I'm grateful for the experience because it's something I struggled with for a very long time.
Oh yeah. There's probably so many people that do struggle with that and just don't know or never know. But that's good that you talk about it because people can go to you for the people that help you. Because that's your main goal now. It's not really it's to help, not really, do paranormal research. It's to help people now for you, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I've accepted that I'm never going to have all the answers in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
My goal is only to educate people as best I can and to help as many people as I can. I had a case today. Oh my goodness, it wasn't Afghanistan. It was, it wasn't even Pakistan. It was next to Pakistan.
Afghanistan?
For the life of me, I can't remember.
Afghanistan?
No.
Nepal?
It begins with a B. No, it begins with a B. No, it's okay. It doesn't matter. But she's under magical attack right now. And so she's already been to a Muslim cleric. She's been to a Hindu priest. She's tried their rituals. Now she's reaching out to me for help.
Oh.
Wow.
So what do you? Okay, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So the foundation.
Say it again.
I'm sorry?
You froze for a second. Say it again about the
I was
foundation.
going to say the foundation that I run is actually made up. Yeah, I apologize. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm guessing you. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. I apologize. The foundation that I run is a worldwide organization. It has well over 100 members. They all volunteer their services. They are all amazing people. And I am so humbled to have them in my life, to have them helping people the way they are. Look, you guys are in this, there are a lot of crackpots out there. And there are a lot of people who just want to get their 5-second video and they don't care what they do to the family or how destitute they leave them. That's not us. I don't care if I ever get something on film. That doesn't mean diddly to me. All I care about is I need to determine for sure what I'm dealing with. And then I want to help the people. That's it. It's as simple as that. 50% of my job is diagnosing the problem. After that, we can set up a service plan, figure out what's best for that family or that person, and move forward from there.
Right.
Oh, and I want to make it clear to everyone, all of our services are free and confidential. Unlike my grandparents, we do not publicize our cases. We will never talk about your problems in a way that you can be identified.
Okay, that's good actually.
Yeah, this is not unlike her. Let me toot her horn for her because she won't do it. She does the regular participating with groups, searching for missing people, and nobody knows. We went for a little while on a show, or they did it on a show, but the energy was all wrong, and I don't think they got anywhere. Even with one of the most famous remote viewers in the history of remote viewing, they didn't get anywhere, and it was the energy. And I've watched her deal with the deceased and the spirits that have need successful in every other case where that negative energy is not around. Yeah.
You have to treat spirits like you treat the living, with respect and love. You know, most of the time, for your audience, if you haven't seen the movie The Others with Nicole Kidman, it is the best representation of a lost soul that you will ever watch. It's fantastic. And those are people who need help. Notice I said people. You know, I don't make a distinction between the living and the dead.
So my introduction to her was after my mother passed away, and she was called whatever to do a reading for me. So she did, and I knew very quickly, after one thing after another, that she was talking with my mother. And my last convincing piece was this little old lady walked up to her and started talking. She couldn't understand her because the southern accent was so thick. And she kept jumping up and down and saying a word, the same word, over and over and over again to get her to say it to me. She couldn't understand what it was, so she was ashamed to say it to me. But when she finally said it to me, it was my nickname for my grandmother.
Yep.
So, you know, they're there. They are real, and they are there. I get it demonstrated around her every day. There is not a person that I have seen that has got a reading from her when they really felt like they needed it, that they weren't really emotional and joyous by the end. It's just kind of amazing. They are there. We need to respect them and expect them.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. Although I would caution your audience, look, my grandmother was one of the greatest psychics ever, honestly. But during the exorcism of Maurice Theriault, my grandfather was having a heart attack, and my grandmother thought he was just low on potassium and needed a banana. You know, she couldn't see that the man she loved was having a heart attack. She couldn't read anybody she cared about. You know, once your emotions are involved, a psychic's abilities, well, we suck. You know, and if we know something ahead of time, it's even worse. You know, we don't know for sure. I think I'm a very good psychic, but I don't trust myself without confirmation. So, Lala, I understand you being careful about giving out that name, but you should always put out that word or name that you're getting, because you never know the impact it'll have on the other person. And for your audience, never change your life based on something a psychic tells you without evidence, ever.
Yeah,
Even the best.
They told me that I didn't know. I went and checked with my brothers and others to make sure that she was correct.
Yeah, oh no, and that's very important. My grandmother used to say the best psychic in the world is only right 60% of the time. That's a fantastic amount. I think it's 70%, but even so, that 30 or 40% that they get wrong can really lead you down the wrong path.
Oh, yeah.
So I do caution people about that.
Medically, go to the doctor. Don't trust, the psychic first. Take the,
Exactly.
Always seek a doctor. That's what I say. If I pick something up medically, I say, I'm not a doctor. I could be wrong, but listen, this is what I feel. Go check it out with your doctor,
Yeah. I ran into that when I was 26, and that's actually when I stopped using my abilities the way I was. I haven't looked at an aura since I was 26. Because I saw a man with a black aura. And I knew he was going to die, but I couldn't tell him because I didn't know how he would die. Was he going to be hit by a bus, or what was going to happen to him? Next morning, he had a heart attack.
Oh my God.
So it's, sometimes we don't have complete. For instance, last month when I was doing that conversation with the father who had died, all I kept getting was danger, 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 danger. And I was like, you got to give me more than that. I'm not going to go down to your daughter and just say she's in danger. That's not going to help. I'm going to make her panic stricken. But as I was doing a spiritual cleansing of the home, excluding him, I kept seeing things, physical things like beer bottles and liquor bottles. And I said, are you drinking? Do you drink? because you really don't want to do that if there's anything negative going on here. I said, no, I don't drive. Oh, wait a minute. Do you have an ex? Yeah, and he's really bad. That's when it clicked. Then now I know what the danger is. And then I got confirmation. He threatened to run over her mother. He wanted to hunt me down. Oh, yeah. He wasn't going to let her leave the country. She has a pilot's license. Yeah, he's bad news.
Oh my God.
Okay, so Chris, everybody and their brother has seen a lot of your grandparents and things, but there has to be something that's never covered in any of these videos and movies, etc. they're in, that would be interesting to people if they actually got to know them. Can you tell us something like that most people don't know but is interesting?
Well, there are plenty of stories I've told over the years that nobody else tells. For instance, well, you know what? In my announcement that I was going to be doing this tonight, I did promise that I'd give a couple of recipes first. So here's something that gets to talk about. These are things that my grandmother used to. My grandmother, oh my God. So Thanksgiving's next week. She'd already be cooking. I mean, she was amazing. She would make all the cakes and pies from scratch. Always had pumpkin pie there for me specifically. But her favorite, she loved succotash, and she loved turnips by themselves, mashed up with lots of butter and salt.
Love it.
Yeah, well, it's an acquired taste, I suppose.
Yeah.
No, I love it. My grandmother would make me help her. I helped her.
Now I think I would love it. Unfortunately, I haven't seen any turnips down here. Otherwise, I'd have it this next Thursday. But that's one thing. The other one is, and she would do this for me every Christmas. It was always one of my stocking stuffers. She would get dates, take the pit out, stuff them with crunchy peanut butter.
Oh my!
And she would either roll them in peanuts or roll them in coconut, and that would be one of my treats that she would give us, or me, actually. So those are two recipes for you. But when I was 14, my grandparents took me on a lecture tour. And there is a clip of them on a show called To Tell the Truth. It's an old show that they had. They were on the same episode with Ronald Reagan's barber. And what they do is they'll have three people come out, one of whom is the real one, and then there are two fakes. And the celebrity panel has to question them to figure out who is the real Lorraine Warren. I was there for that.
To remember that episode.
I was there for that. I was in the audience watching it. It was amazing. But we went out to either we were in Missouri or Ohio, I think, and we had done an interview with PM Magazine, I believe. At first, we were just in the hotel lobby doing a couple of hours of taping, but then they went with a local reporter and the film crew to this haunted house. Now, we weren't allowed to go in. And while my grandmother is sitting or standing out in front of the house on the sidewalk, telling everybody about this apparition of this heavy-set man in a butcher's apron that's all bloody, of the stink of rotten meat coming out of the kitchen underneath the sink, of just massive, I think there was a lot of heat that would appear in the house, all sorts of things. As she's saying these things, the local reporter is showing me the notes he's gotten from the family for a story he hasn't even written yet. And I'm like, holy crap, my grandmother's an X-Men. So that was the first amazing experience I had with them, seeing my grandmother really do her thing. There was a case, Dudleytown is a famous, or maybe infamous, a ghost town in Connecticut that my grandparents and I would investigate often. But one night, I think it was probably around 1974, on Halloween night, they were with WFSB Channel 3. They had two brand new camera trucks, and they were going to go into Dudleytown. Just as they were entering with the crew, the trucks died completely, and they couldn't get them to work. They couldn't transmit. They couldn't do anything.
Oh my God.
So yeah, that was an interesting. And now I wasn't there for that. Oh, and the next movie that's coming out September 5th, I'm told, is about the Lindley Street case.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that was their first breakthrough public case. You know, they've done the movie. The first Conjuring movie is based on a case that actually took about 10 years. You know, it wasn't this quick little thing. My grandparents didn't really know what they were doing. They had been working for 20 years, and they still didn't know. My grandmother even said to Andrea Perrin, you know, she apologized and she said, you know, we didn't know what we were dealing with. We'd never dealt with anything like this before.
I actually know the Hayes brothers.
The who?
The authors, the Hayes brothers, the screenplay authors for The Conjuring.
Oh, okay. I'm not a Hollywood guy. I don't know anybody.
Oh, neither am I. I just happen for weird circumstances to know them. So that they are friend. I'm into UAP. They are good friends with a very famous person in UFO land. So anyway, it's interesting. So why, if you're allowed to say, why are you in Latin America?
Oh, sure, I'm allowed. I've been here for 5 years now. Well, most of the last 5 years. I've also been in Portugal, Spain, Scotland, England, Mexico. Yeah. Because I go where I'm needed. I go where there aren't good people to help people get through the darkness. And also I'm here to study how the paranormal manifests differently and how different cultures deal with those manifestations. I'm always looking for new ways. I'm a pastor, but I'm a pastor without any religion. I don't think God cares about your religion. He cares about your heart and your faith. And
my father was a minister, and he was an ordained Methodist minister, but Methodism was not what defined him. His faith is what defined him.
Absolutely. And faith must be defined by works. You know, if you're somebody who goes faithfully to church every Sunday, and then you ignore the people suffering in the street as you're leaving, well, you didn't really put your faith into action. You know, you need to do that.
He was a social justice warrior 7 days a week. So it was interesting to grow up in that family, especially during the 70s when schools in the South were being integrated, because he was on the side of light. So anyway.
I have I guess a weird question, but well, two, but here's one. Do you think that you're drawn to or called to places that have a lot of activity because there's a portal there that a lot of things go in and out of?
I'm sorry, because there's a what?
A portal?
Oh, you know, I don't think so. Not for me personally. I mean, I don't. All right. Yes, if I'm in Europe, I will go to a haunted location simply because it's cool. But we're talking castles and the city of York. But I'm not there because it's haunted. I'm there because it's a castle or because it's the city of York.
Right.
No, I've never been to the Conjuring House or Amityville because nobody's asked me to go there and help. I don't think it's an intelligent idea to reinvestigate places that have been closed. You are bringing your energy and your intention to work with spirit into that location. You may get what you're looking for. And unfortunately, a lot of those people are not very stable. We had a consultant with the foundation who actually was writing a thesis on how the paranormal attracts broken personalities.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, and there are a lot of them out there. And those people going into these places, they could be manifesting something pretty horrifying. So, no, I don't like that premise at all. That whole 28 Days Later series that was on Netflix. That was not my grandparents' theory. They never had a theory like that. That was just garbage, and certainly a bad idea. I do not believe in paranormal tourism.
Well,
How do people contact your society?
www.warrenlegacy.com, warrenlegacyfoundation.com, warrenfiles.com. It's all the same. Or you can find me right there at Warren Files on Instagram, or you can get a hold of me, Chris McKinnell, on Facebook. Sadly, I've got, I think, 3 Facebook profiles there that for whatever reason, 2 are public and 1 is just my real one, which I use to communicate with everyone around the world. But yeah, we're here to help. That's it.
I know it's coming too close, but I have one more question that I want to know your opinion on. With incubus, succubus, or entities that can do those physical things to people, what is that all about? Is that conjured up by people too, or is it something else?
I know, I think it is. You know the case, The Haunting in Connecticut?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Terrible book. Unbelievably bad book. And it was called In a Dark Place. The movie, even worse. It's the only movie I've ever walked out on in my life. But that was my case. I was the lead investigator on that case. My grandparents and I went there for the initial interview, and then my grandfather asked me to stay, and I stayed there 9.5 weeks straight.
Wow.
Gathered information, and so that we could get help from the church. And I have to say how amazingly brave Carmen and Al Snedeker were, that they were willing to come forward and both talk about what they were going through. Al was working in a rock quarry as a supervisor, and he admitted he got sodomized by a spirit. I mean, this is a guy, he had to live with that afterward with his coworkers. It wasn't like they were making money off of this or anything like that. That was ridiculous. Yeah, that was bad. But just like doppelgangers, I can't really answer this. For me, things like incubus and succubus, incubi, succubi, they are tulpas. They are egregores. They're created through human energy, through problems. Remember, Carmen and Al were dealing with pretty bad problems with their son, her son anyway, who was suffering from leukemia. He was unbalanced for a while. They moved into a funeral home where certainly there were spirits there, and all of that energy was there, necromantic energy. Yes, I've dealt with other funeral homes like this that have caused a lot of problems, and it manifested in a very negative way. Starting with Philip, with the boy who had leukemia.
Wow.
And it took on a life of its own. And it went after Carmen's niece, Tammy, next, when she was in the bathroom, in the shower, through the shower curtain, and she could see an outline of it. And then it went after Carmen, and it started. I was there watching it happen, pulling her out. I've got photos of us on the kitchen floor as I'm pulling her out of these attacks.
Wow.
Yeah, it's real, it's powerful, but to me, it also says an awful lot about us and how powerful we are, and what can we do if we let go of our fear and we learn how to harness it properly. Yeah. To me, the paranormal is a hopeful thing, not a negative thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Tammy wants to know if her cousin who lives next to the Conjuring house is in danger.
As far as I know, that house has been cleared. And I don't believe in demons. I do believe, though, that things can spill over. Absolutely, they can. But you should never start being afraid without reason, ever. Don't live in fear. You know, fear can bring you these things, can make them attracted to you, can make them manifest that way. So no, don't jump to that conclusion ever. As a matter of fact, we don't even use the word demon in the foundation, and we've got plenty of people in the foundation who believe in that. You know, not everyone believes what I believe, and that's fine. Our strength comes from our diversity.
Yes, I agree with that.
Boy, do I believe in that. What's your last question?
Oh my God. First of all, I hope that you come back on.
Oh, please come back
You're
on.
so awesome, first of all.
Whenever you come back on, because I'm going to shut down on the hour and have 5,000 questions as soon as I shut down. Because I'm going to remember some movie or some book I read or whatever, and but we know how to get in touch with you. I'll do it that way. But,
well, I would say this. On that first lecture tour that I was on, I got to meet one of the 3 exorcists that actually worked on the case that inspired the movie The Exorcist.
Oh.
He showed me how important it is to be humble. That this isn't about you, this is about God. This is God's work, however you term God, I don't care. And that you must approach it with humility and with compassion. He was an inspiration for me and a guide for me.
Marty thinks this was a great interview. What I think is we had a great guest. Chris, thank you so much for coming, and we will be inviting you back. I've just read too much, know too little, and have too many questions not to try to get more out of you.
I have more questions today than I did when I was a teenager, and I knew everything.
Exactly. Well, I know how little I know. Thank you very much. And to the audience, thank you for being here. And be sure and hit like and visit Chris on his website and look around and find something of interest. Thank you very much.
If you need a little help, go to Warren Files on the YouTube channel as well. We've got over 100 videos with plenty of information that can be.
So Warren Files on YouTube. Chris, thank you very much, and good night.
Good night.